In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, who came to us in the person of Master Fard Muhammad, the all-wise, true, and living God. We thank him for his intervention in our affairs, for him coming among us, teaching and raising from the lost found, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, to be his messenger, his Messiah, now the exalted Christ. And we thank them both for their extension of love and mercy in the personage of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. My name is Brother Allan X. I'm a registered member of the Nation of Islam of 18 years, and I also have the opportunity and privilege at serving as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's local representative here in the city of Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm a researcher and author of 4 books. Most of my research is aimed in the field of cognitive science and human consciousness as it relates to mental phenomena. The course that I'll be teaching is titled Mathematic Language: An Introduction to the Language of the Birds. In 2014, I wrote and published a book titled Master Fard and the Language of Birds: An Esoteric and Literal Analysis, in which I chose to dive deep into the saying of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad regarding Master Fard's Muhammad's mental ability to speak the language of the birds. This book will lay the base and be the foundation around which most of the course material will revolve. There's 6 particular themes that I want to cover in this course, the language of the birds. One is the literal meaning of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's statement that Master Fard Muhammad could speak the language of the birds. The second is the esoteric or the secret, deeper spiritual meaning of that particular phraseology or statement. Because the supreme wisdom does tell us that there is more to be understood in the words. So we have to dig deeper into those words. What does it mean that he could speak the language of the birds, and what are the implications, and are or is it found throughout various cultures and religions some motif of a person being able to speak the language of the birds? Third topic we want to cover is dealing with the language of the birds as the actual message of the messengers and prophets that was sent by Allah God throughout the annals of time. That their actual speech that gave life to and raised people was classified as language of the birds. And the fourth theme comes directly from the Quran, which I'll read in chapter 27. Chapter 27 of the Holy Quran is dealing with the history of Moses. And in the 27th chapter of the Holy Quran, and the 16th verse, or 15th and 16th verse, we read, "And certainly we gave knowledge to David and Solomon. They said, Praise be to Allah who made us excel many of his believing servants. And Solomon was David's heir, and he said, O men, have we been taught the speech of bird, and we have been granted of all things. Surely this is manifest grace." So here, the motif again of a person, a divine person being able to speak the language of the bird, surfaces in the 27th chapter in the 16th verse, with Solomon being granted the ability to possess, to speak and commune with nature, in particular, the language of the birds. And if we go back to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's 1972 historical address that spanned over 6 months of time, titled The Theology of Time, he mentioned David being able to speak the language of the birds. The fifth thing that we'll deal with respect to speaking the language of the birds will come directly from alchemy. Alchemy is a very early science. Some says that it predated chemistry, but the basis of alchemy was a philosophic tradition in which the alchemists were trying to turn base metals into gold. All of this has deep spiritual meaning that we'll cover as we go more in depth in the curriculum of the overall course. But one of the things the alchemists would do when they wrote formulas was they would write something called a rhetorical blind. That means they would write something that would be encoded or encrypted, have an encrypted message, so that the average person read it, they couldn't get the meaning. But if you was initiated into a special circle of knowledge and had a certain understanding, you would be able to decipher the code. So this rhetorical blind would obstruct and hide the truth. So when you study the supreme wisdom lessons, you notice that as you study over time, you can find deeper and deeper, by Allah's permission, truths that are actually hidden there beneath the words. And this is one of the meanings, I believe, to the statement in our lessons that says there's more to be understood in the words. Now, the sixth thing that we'll cover, referring to the language of the birds motif, will be the 25,000 year cycle history, or written history by the circle of gods, how that too is actually connected to one's ability to speak the language of the birds, this sacred or divine wisdom that is locked up by this circle of inner initiates, which we call the 24 scientists of Islam. So I hope that you would be inspired to continuously study the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad from an academic standpoint and from a deeper spiritual standpoint, knowing that there's many, many hidden gems beneath the words and in between the words given to us in the Supreme Wisdom lessons. And out of that comes a whole curriculum. Now, this book, Master Fard in the Language of the Birds, which will be required reading for the course, this required reading will help give us a greater sense of conviction in every aspect that of teachings that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave us from cover to cover in all his books, and of course what the God gave us in the Supreme Wisdom lessons, that they're not just words written on a page that has surface meaning. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan told us to not be surface dwellers, but to go beyond the surface and dig up the deep truths that are buried there. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, in a letter in the early 1930s, said these words, referring to our Savior. He said, he gave us not one word that is not to be dug out and studied. So that was the inspiration behind me writing the book, and also which led to ultimately the development of this course for curriculum of study rooted in the Supreme Wisdom teachings. So I thank you for your time, and I look forward to interacting with you all throughout this course. Assalamu alaikum.